And there's no Wisconsin news, right? Did anybody look?
No, I haven't. Well, yeah, the Rojo.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the Civic Media Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
And now, here's your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I'm going to call this a Flannel Friday.
Yes.
A Georgia jury put a hit out on Rudy Friday edition. I'm wearing flannel, but the breaking news, Dom, it's breathtaking.
Rudy. Wow. 844-967-2789. You have to join us. It's Friday. We aired the grievances. Crute, Nate working the board. Maggie Dawn coming at the 5 o'clock hour. It's going to be a fun day. And yes, Rudy Giuliani ordered, according to The Hill, to pay $148 million in the election workers' defamation lawsuit.
Let me ask you, if $48 million, the amount originally sought by the plaintiffs in this case, if $48 million, and Rudy's lawyer said that's effectively a death penalty. If $48 million's a death penalty, what's 3 times $48 million? I mean,
Bring out today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Rudy's not going to make it through the holidays, Tom. Rudy will not live through the holidays. This jury's looking for a pound of flesh. And let me tell you, this reminds me a lot. Did you ever watch the Sopranos?
Oh, of course, man.
Sunday night over on the HBO. They're up there still on the streaming. You younger people, go back, watch The Sopranos. The classics are the best.
Yes, absolutely.
But there's the one episode where Tony Soprano, and I don't mean to be too colorful here on a afternoon drive show, but Tony Soprano drags a guy out of a bar by his hair, and he aligns this guy's jaw with the curb.
He puts his teeth on the curb. Yes, correct.
Sets his upper jaw on the curb, and then kicks him in the back of the head. And this guy, let's just say, lost some teeth. And that is what we affectionately call curb stomping.
Affectionately? I mean, it's just what it is.
It is what it is. But this is pretty gangster, Dom.
Yeah.
I mean, this jury wanted to bury Giuliani under Meadowlands Stadium. They put a hit out on this guy. This will kill Rudy Giuliani. If 48 million's going to kill him, 148 million's going to bury him.
Another 148. They're going to have to clean the teeth out of their slacks cuffs, Crute. It is bad. The Hill reporting during the 4-day trial, 8 Washington, D.C. residents heard harrowing testimony from the workers. So this was in D.C. Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who said their lives were turned upside down as they faced a torrent of racist and violent threats following the accusations. Judy was found liable in the case months ago, and the jury only convened to decide how much the former federal prosecutor must pay in damages. Before deliberations began, the mother-daughter duo asked for more than $47 million. Well, they got more than $47 million, Crute. Everyone who spread lies about Ms. Moss and Ms. Freeman should be held accountable, their lawyers said. The jury deliberated for more than 10 hours before ordering Giuliani to pay the election workers a total of $148.7 million. Moss will receive nearly $17 million for Giuliani's defamation and $20 million for his infliction of emotional distress. Freeman will receive nearly $16.2 million for defamation and $20 million for emotional distress. The mother-daughter received an additional $75 million in punitive damages. Whoo!
Here's my fear for the now successful plaintiffs. Rudy's broke. They're not getting paid. They're not getting paid. But here's
they're not going to get $148 million, but they'll get something.
Will they? Will they?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I'm not clear what Giuliani's future lifetime earnings are if he's been disbarred effectively in D.C. and I believe New York. But here's my thought, Dom. A, he ain't paying anybody, but B, he's been petulant, and he came outside the courtroom. I mean, let's not forget the other day, he left the courtroom, the defamation trial, to go out and defame the defendant or the plaintiffs further.
Keeps doing it. Maybe that's why there was an additional $75 million in punitive damages.
When you're down $150 million to the House, you really shouldn't take the tone this guy takes. Let me give you a little example. Nate did the hard work. He pulled the Giuliani sound for us so we could play it for you fine people. Here he is, a little petulant. It's absurd. You're absurd, Giuliani. Play cut one.
The absurdity of the number merely underscores the absurdity of the entire proceeding, where I've not been allowed to offer one single piece of evidence in defense.
Why didn't you take the stand in your own defense?
Oh, because the victims already went through enough, according to Giuliani's attorney. And let's again, much like the Trump civil fraud trial case, this was already decided. He had already been judged against. He's been convicted essentially of this defamation, of this act, and he continued to do it. And an additional hook of $75 million. I mean, when it gets to be $148 million, Rudy. Now, my understanding, he had some condo or something worth like $6 million, and there's some things probably out there that you can fire sale and get something. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be like trading places, the old guys living in the streets kind of a thing. But there are presumably assets out there. And there's a guy's shirt. Does he have insurance? Arizona Missions, perhaps. You're an attorney. Come on, man.
We've got more Rudy sound, a little bit more post $148 million ruling, I believe. That's when I'm always at my most confident, when I'm down $150 million to the House.
You double down, Crute.
When my lawyer says $48 million would kill me and I owe triple that to the House, that's when I'm at my most confident. Let's see if you can hear it in Rudy's voice. Cut number 2.
So I am quite confident when this case gets before a fair tribunal, it'll be reversed so quickly, it'll make your head spin. And the absurd number that just came in will help that, actually.
The number might get knocked down. I would agree with Giuliani in some way, shape, or form. Someone could effectively nullify this jury's financial ruling, set a lower bar. That happens occasionally. Should ask Maggie Dawn about that. But reversal? Reversal of what? You were a jackass during this trial. You made yourself less than sympathetic to the jury. Rudy, the plaintiffs, here's what I see, reported Dom. Found this over at the Raw Story. Specifically, when Ruby Freeman was telling the court that she could no longer use her real name, 2 women in the juror's box were seen getting emotional, according to Andrew Rice of New York Magazine. Rice, speaking on CNN's Laura Coates live Thursday evening, said, for the most part, the jurors were behaving as jurors are supposed to. They didn't betray a lot of emotion. That being said, there were a couple of exceptions, according to Rice. I will say that at one point of the testimony yesterday, when Ruby Freeman, the mother, and the pair were testifying, she became very emotional. She started talking about how she really couldn't use her real name anymore. People knew who she was because of this tarnish, right, Dom? And it was attached to her name, and she couldn't introduce herself to people. Rice added that she moved to a new place. She gave up her home, moved to a new neighborhood. She felt like she didn't have an identity anymore. The jurors reportedly responded to that. I saw one woman who was similar looking to Ruby Freeman in the sense that she was an older African-American woman, dabbing her eyes with the tissue. And then next to her, a woman was a white, middle-aged white woman, also started and seemed to be quite emotional. I think that it's only an 8-person jury, so if 2 of the 8 people are crying when the plaintiff's talking,
wow,
it's not good for the defendant.
No, not at all. 844-967-2789. Joseph Sibley, Giuliani's attorney throughout the trial, looked to show sympathy with the 2 workers. I have no doubt that Mr. Giuliani's statements caused harm. No question about it. But Just because these things happened, it doesn't make my clients responsible for them. Sibley did not cross-examine Freeman, but did ask questions to Moss, in particular questioning whether her diagnosis of major depressive disorder and acute stress disorder could really be linked to his client. Giuliani also opted against taking the stand after indicating for days he would testify. We feel like these women have been through enough, Sibley explained in his closing statement. But Sibley told juries that given the plaintiffs the full requested damage would be the civil equivalent of the death penalty and mark the end of Mr. Giuliani. You have to send a message to the country that with this verdict, we don't have a blue state and red state America when it comes to justice. Justice isn't red or blue, Sibley said. I think the jurors sent a message to America. I think they were very, very clear. And on top of the, other damages, 20 million and the for each the 75 million, 74 million in punitive damages, I think they wanted to put a cigarette out on what is and what will no longer be what is left of Rudy Giuliani.
Dom, the internet, as you might have expected, has been reacting in the last few minutes. This is quite new, breaking news. We always like to break it for you here on the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We air the grievances here. We got a fine friend and a fine sponsor. Joining us next, Ellen Robinson from Herbal Aspect. But Dom, before we get to him, here's how the internet's reacting to this news. This jury put a hit out on Rudy Giuliani. Here is what is being said. After a dramatic defamation trial over his false election claims about Georgia election workers, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, Rudy was found liable for $148 million. The reaction from social media, and particularly on the Twitter, Dom, was swift and mocking. Bye-bye, Rudy, posted an attorney and legal commentary, Bradley Moss, the security expert. The jury in Washington, D.C. has awarded Fulton County election workers $148,169,000 in compensatory and punitive damage against Rudy Giuliani for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I had to do those calculations twice to be sure. I might have made a massive error. I don't like doing math on the radio, Don, but $148 million? That's going to exceed Rudy's lifetime earnings, I got to suspect.
Well, especially at this point, he's towards the end of that career, let's call it.
Well, there's always cameo. But wasn't he already doing that? Come back, more Devil's Advocates. Our friend Ellen Robinson bringing us some Friday 420 facts. We are the grievances. Ellen ain't one of them.
Where's the money, man? Where's my money?
About whether legal cannabis is right for you, I'm Alan Robinson, co-founder of Herbal Aspect. Cannabis is my business, my vocation, and my passion. Schedule an in-person or virtual cannabis consultation with me. A $50 value at no cost, just for Devil Radio listeners. Receive personalized advice, benefit from my undivided attention, and I'll guide you through helping you make an informed choice among Herbal Aspect's extensive selection. And get 10% off your first purchase when you use the code Devil Radio at herbalaspect.com.
When they go...
Hey, Dom, how many palindromes can you name in 30 seconds?
Race car, mom, dad, reefer, kayak, level. Did I say mom already?
You're forgetting one really important one.
Zero res.
Not only is it the coolest palindrome ever, it's also our favorite.
Right, I remember. Why is that again?
They advertise with us.
Zero res, my favorite palindrome.
And carpet cleaner.
And carpet cleaner.
Get the best carpet cleaning ever. Schedule your carpet cleaning online at zeroresmedicine.com. Tell them the Devil's
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And we're back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Be sure you check out the Civic Media app. It's super cool. You can take it with you. You can call us, text us from the app. Listen to all the stations on the Civic Media Network. Go to your favorite app store. Look for the Civic Media app.
And Dominic, Fridays around 420, we have our friend and fine sponsor partner from Herbal Aspect, Alan Robinson, by. And Alan's traveling down to a legal marijuana state. I bet he's partying today, Dom. So he joins us live from the road. Alan Robinson, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates.
Hey, Alan.
Hey, Mike, how you doing, man? Sorry to be hitting you up from the road, but when you find that you have consumption lounges in your area, you know, you got to go check out what the competition is like.
So you find yourself on the road going to Illinois, which is a legal recreational use cannabis state. Although I do find the half an ounce limitation cumbersome for out of state purchases. But anyways, man, consumption lounges.
Well, you know, I do not have that unfortunate encumbrance at my shop, and you can pick up just as much flower as you want. Again, what you get down in Illinois is going to be a finer quality wine, so to speak. But I dare to say my bathtub gin's just as good.
Brings all the boys
That's
to the
it.
yard, that
Yeah,
bathtub
right.
gin you make, Alan Robinson.
Alan, the lounges, man. I want to hear a little bit more about this. My understanding, a lot of the states that have legalized, you know, the THC kind of cannabis, it's, you know, you can't consume in public, and there's different restrictions. What are you seeing now, and what's changing?
You know, first off, I'm going down to check out an eatery, so to speak, which is also a consumption lounge, right? Now, this one is Black owned, and it has been in existence for the last couple of years. I just haven't had a chance to get down here to see it. Because that's the kind of thing that I want to bring back to Wisconsin. And because we're opening a new store in Monona, we might have some opportunity to do that. Now's the best time for me to get down there and do that kind of market research.
Alan Robinson, it's a little off topic, man. I saw you on the Facebooks, the social medias the other day, and you were wearing like a super cool bomber jacket, like a 420 Herbal Aspect bomber jacket. I've got to admit, perhaps the coolest jacket I've ever seen. Can I own one of those jackets, man? Is that like you got to be in the club? How do you get one of those?
You can get one. You got to go on to our website and get one. Pre-order. The Herbal Aspect Letterman jackets are available. They're fully customizable, man. You get your name on the back. It comes with the number 420 on the front, 420 on the back. It's got leather sleeves, or you can get the cloth sleeve option. They're dope, man. I'm really excited about these. They're available until December 25th for purchase. They're only like $150, and they'll all be delivered on January 15th.
You know, Dom and I both lettered on the Bong Olympic team in college.
Same. You know what? And I bet, and let me, because I want to live up to the billing, right? Because there's some facts out here that I feel like y'all got to know in regards to how much we smoke, when we smoke, why we smoke, right? So a study came out recently that, and this isn't like the greatest of news, but it's important to talk about all of the things associated with cannabis. Cannabis exposure is linked to 1.3 times higher risk of an unhealthy pregnancy outcomes. So I have women coming into my shop all the time asking me if cannabis is going to be a cannabis edible is a good option for their morning sickness or something of that variety. And while cannabis is great for nausea, I don't think that pregnant women, and I do not suggest it, that women consume while pregnant. And now this study of more than 9,000 pregnant people from across the U.S. Has found like significant findings that indicate that there are, in fact, higher risks associated with cannabis use. So just being cognizant of how we use and when we use, everybody should get a jacket, but not everybody should smoke or consume all the time.
But what about, you know, like middle-aged, barely employed guys like Dom and I? You know, what's the limitation on guys like us, Alan?
Yeah, man, not that you have no limits with me, no limits, no judgments. A jacket, you get a jacket, you get a bong rip, you get a bong rip.
You're the Oprah. He's Alan Robinson. He is a sponsor and a friend of ours. He is from Herbal Aspect. They're based in Madison, but I realize not all the audience is hearing you from Madison, Alan. And for those that would be curious, because you are legal. You're selling a legal cannabis product under both state and federal laws. You can mail these products. These can be mail ordered. They can be ordered from the herbalaspect.com website. So all of the people that hear your voice right now, they're potential clients of yours, Alan.
Oh, absolutely, man. We ship it, get it to you in a discreet package in just a couple of days. And we've got that down to a science. That's actually how we started. So our mail order business is big, but it's big and it can get bigger. Got these gummies flying out, man.
Alan, I got to admit, I'd like to think I'm an expert, but more of a amateur at the cannabis thing. You know, I've been doing a long-term longitudinal study, but not really writing down the results. But I do perceive you as something of a cannabis expert, and I know that you've been doing the consultations, and you're doing them for our listeners for free. And I don't mean to be like a boomer of weed, but it's good to know the right answers and figure out what might be the right consumption for you and what you're comfortable with and what goals you might have through this consumption. So, Alan, you still doing the consultations here for the holidays? People could be the best gift giver on the entire block.
Oh, man, you're absolutely right. Just real quick here, knowing what you are trying to accomplish with your cannabis use and then pairing that with the right cannabinoid profile is incredibly important. You might not want to get as stony as a college kid. So understanding what milligram dosages to kind of step into, that's really where we want to be with those cannabis consultations. And of course, Devil Radio listeners get those for free. You just type in the code Devil Radio at checkout and you'll get that benefit.
Alan, if you could help cast us, safely somewhere between Willie Nelson and Snoop Dogg, that's the range I like to be for the holidays. Can you find me somewhere to fall in that range?
Oh, man, I'll get you high as a research monkey. Or we've got concentrates. You can go to Sputnik. It all depends on what your consumption level is, where you want to be. And yes, I can absolutely get you there. I'll be somewhere right past Mars.
Well, be careful on the roads out there. Safe travels down to the land of Lincoln, the flatlands to our south.
Right.
Well, I'm not implying you are, but I didn't imply you were driving either, just on the road. Be careful out there, my friend. Have a great weekend. Alan Robinson from the Herbal Aspect. Find them online. One of our fine sponsors, herbalaspect.com. More Devil's Advocates. Friday grievances. Yours could be next. 844-96-PARTY.
Radio 92.7 WMDX. Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app.
Civic Media News. I'm Terry Bell. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. Governor Evers is approving $1 billion for all kinds of projects across Wisconsin, including refurbishing local wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. Evers says the spending will modernize Wisconsin's infrastructure and state agency operations. Online shoppers should look out for scam artists. Courtney Anclam is a fraud expert with AARP Wisconsin. She says it's clear more people need to learn the red flags.
We talk about ads on social media. It's sometimes really difficult to discern if that's real or not. The landscape is always shifting. People are maybe not keeping up as much as they should be on some of those new tactics.
She says only 28% passed a recent AARP quiz about warning signs for shopping and gift card scams. I'm Terry Bell, Civic Media News. Now here's what you need to know closer to home.
For WMDX News, I'm Nate Wuggehout. A number of Metro bus routes throughout Madison have been either delayed or canceled this week due to a lack of buses. Metro Transit officials say they have fallen behind on required safety inspections of the buses. Without those inspections, the buses aren't legally allowed to run their routes. Metro officials say that they are short-staffed in their maintenance department and have had open positions since the beginning of the year. Transit officials say that delays are expected to continue next week. People living in a mobile home park in Evansville have been without clean drinking water for almost a month. The Midway Village Mobile Home Park has had a boil water advisory in place since mid-November. That was when testing found E. coli in the drinking water. Residents say that since then, they've been drinking only bottled water and have had to shower at relatives' homes outside the mobile home park. And that's what you need to know. I'm Nate Wuggyhout, WMDX News.
Pat Slattery here of Slattery's Automotive Service. Winter's coming, and that means now's the time for you to start thinking about snow tires. Travel winter roads with ease on Hakkapeliitta snow tires. Hakkapeliitta is the top-of-the-line snow tire, made in Finland and eco-friendly. If it's snowing, they'll get you there. Give me a call at 608-848-6123 to get yours set. Slattery's Automotive Service, your trusted choice for local service and repairs for all your automotive needs.
A.J. Dillon unlikely to play. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. A.J. Dillon has been the Packers' best running back this season, but we've learned on one of the last plays of the game Monday in New York, Dillon's right hand was crushed by a helmet. He now has a broken right thumb. Aaron Jones has been out a month with an MCL sprain. Is he ready yet?
I'm feeling a lot better. Got to move around today in practice and making great strides. So I'm going to take it day by day, but I feel I'm confident.
Wisconsin's volleyball team is coming home. They lost in the semifinals last night in Tampa, 3-1 to the Texas Longhorns, who advanced to the finals against Nebraska on Sunday. The Badgers men's basketball team able to get another win at home, this time 75-60 over Jacksonville State. Wisconsin now 8-3. They return to the Kohl Center next Friday night against Chicago State. Badgers head coach Greg Gard.
We are going to have to really work to get things offensively because they're a good defensive team.
With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
Don't change the station, but do watch out for deer, would ya? You know, they're running around all willy-nilly. It is the Craig's Cast with me, Charlie Behrens, on Civic Media and the Civic Media app.
I'm meteorologist Mace Michaels. A cloudy sky tonight, maybe a little drizzle or mist, and lows in the upper 30s. And a cloudy day again for tomorrow, highs only to the low 40s. Early clouds Sunday, then sun breaks out for the afternoon, around 40 for the high. Breezy, sunny, but only upper 20s Monday. Currently, it's 44 degrees.
Your smile says a lot about you. It can give you confidence and give great first impressions. At West University Family Dentistry, Dr. Thacker and his staff will help ensure your oral health is in top shape, because oral health affects your overall health. From routine checkups to advanced treatments, they're here to keep your smile shining bright and to make your dental appointment as pleasant and stress-free as possible. Call West University Family Dentistry at 608-238-6244, 608-238-6244, or log on westuniversityfamilydentistry.com. You're listening to the Devil's Advocates. Then at 6, stay tuned for
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. You made it till Friday. We survived.
Well done, everybody.
We're thriving here on the radio airwaves. Thank you to our friend Alan Robinson, Herbal Aspect. And looking forward to being joined by the incomparable Maggie Dawn from the Maggie Dawn Show, Milwaukee County Corporation Council. And most importantly, our friend joins us in the Happier Happy Hour.
Yeah, it's been too long.
No grievances about that whatsoever. But if you got some grievances, and, you know, it is the custom, we air them here on the airwaves. It is the Festivus season, Dom.
It indeed is.
Do have a lot of problems with you people.
Now you're going to hear about it.
844-967-2789. But I'd like to throw one out there. Worst Congress ever. Ever. This is the headline. Dana Milbank at the Washington Post. Not even my opinion. Dana Milbank,
right.
Columnist at the Post. A year ago, Milbank writes, I assigned myself to the Capitol to cover the new House Republican majority, suspecting that this erratic crowd of lawmakers would provide some lively material. You know, we're all in it for the material, Dom. They did not disappoint. What I could not have known then, however, was that this would turn out to be the most ineffective session of Congress in nearly a century, and quite possibly in all of American history.
Oh, wow.
The year began with chaos and incompetence. It ended with chaos and incompetence.
Consistency.
Yeah, they're consistent, these Republicans, Tom. In between were self-created crisis and shocking moments of fratricide interspersed with more chaos and incompetence. Here's a quote, Dom. John Negese, Democrat of Colorado, he observes, "This will go down as the least productive Congress since the Great Depression." How well they're doing. Negese almost certainly understates the case. While it's true, as Huffington Post Jonathan Nicholson points out, that Congress got even less than this is only because it didn't start its session that year until December. It seems probable that no Congress in American history has spent so much time accomplishing so little as this one.
Oh, wow.
It's like a Congress about nothing, Dom. What do House Republicans have to show the voters for their year in power? Well, a bipartisan debt deal on which they promptly reneged to avoid a default crisis which they themselves created. A pair of temporary spending bills, both passed with mostly Democratic votes, to avert a government shutdown crisis that they themselves created.
Consistency.
The ouster of their speaker, nearly a month-long shutdown of the chamber as they sought another, and the expulsion of one of their members who is now negotiating himself a plea deal and making sweet, sweet cameo money. Santos doing better there than he did in the Congress, Dom. And among the 22 bills in 2023 that became law as this week was the landmark legislation known as H.R. 3672 to designate the Clinic of the Department of Veterans Affairs in Indian River, Michigan as the PFC Justin Patton Department of Veterans Affairs Clinic. Also, H.R. 5110, the Protecting Hunting Heritage and Education Act, which authorized federal education funds to purchase or use dangerous weapons for instruction.
Wow.
These are the important, Dom, the important things this worst Congress ever.
Wow. Rudy Milbank continues from the Washington Post. On Thursday, the House, exhausted from its labors, recessed for a 3-week vacation. We're
going to Disneyland.
Leaving behind a pile of urgent, unfinished business, including funds to arm Ukraine and fortify the southern border. When the lawmakers return, they will have just 8 legislative days to pass something to avoid the latest government shutdown, on which they have made no progress so far. But before rushing home for the holidays, Republicans did manage to approve, in a party line vote, a formal impeachment inquiry into Biden for imaginary crimes that even they could not identify. It's been an up and down year, Majority Leader Steve Scalise said in a year-end news conference. He was half right. The quote continues. I know.
What was the up part? What was the up part, Steve?
Getting rid of McCarthy, I guess. I know for those of you in the press, there's never been a week where it was boring for you, Milbank writes. This was true. Next year is going to be just as busy, he went on. That shouldn't be hard. He acknowledged there's talk about how hard it's been, but he blamed the Democratic Senate for the inaction. Nice try, Milbank writes. This Senate, with a similar majority, was highly productive in the last Congress. And Congress, even under divided government, has routinely found ways to function until this gang took over the House. The final week was typical. In the Senate, Democrats and Republicans feverishly negotiated a compromise that would allow the United States to keep sending arms to Ukraine to help Ukraine fight off Russia's invasion while also toughening U.S. border policies. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer pleaded with Speaker Mike Johnson to keep his chamber in session so that the emergency spending package could be passed before year end. Johnson refused, prompting Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell to say it would be practically impossible to pass the desperately needed bill. Likewise, Johnson, who, as Punchbowl News noted, has proved to be unwilling or unable to make tough decisions, couldn't decide which of 2 competing bills of the House should pass to reauthorize a program known as Section 702 that falls under a FISA Act and is vitally important to national security. So he scheduled House votes on them both, which caused the House Republican caucus to devolve Monday night into yet another round of bickering, with Rep. Warren Davidson from Ohio accusing Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner of effing lying. Once again paralyzed, House GOP leaders yanked both bills from consideration on the floor. Instead, they moved on to the Duck Stamp Modernization Act of 2023, no doubt a matter of great importance to waterfowl hunters.
Well, that way you can get your duck stamp on your cell phone, Dom. It's important stuff they're doing this Congress.
They're getting their ducks in a row. The dysfunction shows every sign that it will continue in the new year. The House Freedom Caucus, whose members routinely kneecap Republican leaders and derailed proceedings in the House in 2023, just elected their new leader, Rep. Bob Good from Virginia, one of the most doctrinaire members of the caucus and one of the 8 Republicans who ousted Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. He now leads the Freedom Caucus. Davidson, in a letter to colleagues intercepted by Axios, alluded to Good's bomb-throwing tendencies and asked that the group prayerfully consider electing someone else. They went on with the legislative terrorists anyway. Dana Milbank just lighten up this ne'er-do-well House, this Congress, the worst Congress ever? Question mark. You can find the piece posted up at the Devil's Advocates radio page. They go on. There's the Hunter Biden stuff. There's all that. They're, of course, they're impeaching. You're not going to be very transparent about it, right? They don't really articulate any specific charges. And from what we read yesterday, some of the corporation payments to the grandsons were of what? A couple $100, $50, $100, $400, $500, something along those lines. And don't forget, the paying back of the truck loan. Very, 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 very mysterious, these Republicans. And we renamed some VA clinics. So, can't say they're not doing anything. Is that governance? Is that progress? Are we moving the country forward?
They're doing the Lord's work, Dom.
Is that what it is?
Virginia Fox, we talked about her yesterday, making her pitch for
Shut up!
whole milk.
Shut up!
Stop shutting me up, Virginia Fox. She was making a pitch for whole milk because that's what Santa takes. But what we missed and what I saw later in the evening, and I apologize to the audience right now, we brought you an incomplete context because Derek Van Orden, Wisconsin's owner from the 3rd.
Yeah.
He also went up there and cracked on almond milk and all other variant forms of milk because they don't come from mammals. Do you ever remember that Meet the Parents? Can you milk? I'm a mammal. Can you milk? I have nipples. Can you milk me?
Yeah, you can milk anything with nipples. I have nipples. Can you milk me? Oh, no, we missed Derek Van Orden. He got in on it too. So Derek Van Orden from Wisconsin.
Literally, the argument was you can milk a mammal. If it's not a mammal, it's not milk. That was the, I paraphrase slightly, but that was the literal argument. Somehow we missed that sound. We didn't share.
I think there was at some point, and I don't know, an argument like that products made from that were not true mammal milk that couldn't be called milk. There was tried to do some sort of legal issue where they couldn't label it as such. Now I don't think it went anywhere. I don't think that's the case because I still get some almond, and I tried almond milk, and sometimes you go to a coffee shop, they don't have necessarily, they have whole milk and maybe almond milk or something else. So I try to mix it up, but I do like the traditional cow milk, generally speaking. But why is this in consideration on the House floor? Well, why do they care what Santa drinks? You know what I mean?
Otherwise they've got to.
Greg. Could you milk me?
Yeah. Because otherwise they've got to talk about the impeachment of Joe Biden, and they've got to talk about the fact that their plan to fund the government really comes crashing down in like 3 weeks. 844-967-2789.
They have 8 legislative days when they return from Christmas holiday break to keep the government open. Good luck with that. I'm sure they'll be raring to go when they get back.
The most important topic discussed on the House floor this week, whether or not you can milk Derek Van Orden because he's a mammal. John from Boaz. John, you live in Van Orden's district, don't you?
Hey, John.
I'm not sure about that, but
you ever considered milking your congressman?
Ever. I have a couple of grievances about him, if I can.
Sure.
All right. Lay it on us, brother.
There's two grievances. I'll let you pick which one. The first one is what the Catholic nuns did to my father. And the second one is our economy is supposed to be going in a recession. But because the federal government gave us $4 billion of funny money, that's $40 million earning interest. But nobody's talking about it.
John, I'm not clear what.
Which one?
Well,
I'd rather talk about the economy, John. But, that's...
John, I'm not sure where your math comes from, but I know there has been tons of infrastructure investment, first in a bipartisan fashion, but also without the help of any Republicans. I know that Joe Biden, the president of the United States, is coming to Milwaukee on Wednesday to talk about the surge in small business growth that's happened through the last couple of years. A lot of people never went back to the office after COVID. They started their own companies. And I think the state of Wisconsin, John, has been really great in some of their policies, the bounce back grants and the Main Street grants extended from the state government through a lot of community partnerships. But I've told the story a few times. Went up to Amory, Wisconsin, had the responsibility to find commercial office space in a town of about 2,200 people. About an hour, I guess it's to the east from Minneapolis, but it's, the Wisconsin side of the river. And I went up to Amory and I started looking at real estate, and everything's rented. The entirety of Main Street was full. I went out to the strip mall. We finally ended up between the hardware store and the grocery store for our little radio station up there, 1260 AM. And now on the FM dial at 104.7 FM, I do believe.
Awesome.
Finally got the FM working 24/7 in Amory. So very excited about that. But the business climate there had been 31 bounce back grants extended in $10,000 increments on Main Street, Amory, in a town of 2,200. And all those vacant storefronts that, just make your town look blighted, they're full. They're vibrant. Downtown Amory is hopping, man. And I got to tell you, I was the guy signing the commercial leases for Civic Media in so many of these different markets, Tom. I signed 9 commercial leases last year. And it was a struggle to find good real estate because this was such a successful program. It made downtown little mom and pop real estate shops very competitive. These small shops, these small business where you would want to be on Main Street, that's where Civic Media wanted to be, right on hometown Main Street. Just me and every other small business owner
right,
coming out of the pandemic. So Wisconsin's done it right, John, particularly right. And I would always compare that and contrast that to how the last administration did it, which was Foxconn. And I hated that guy, wanker. Come back, more Devils. Love you when you call 844-967-2789.
WMDX.
Partner now with the greatest radio show ever and start getting return on your investment immediately. The Devil's Advocates are a small business just like you, and like you, we can't afford advertising that offers no return. The Devil's Advocates listeners support our sponsors and the mission. Tell you when your messages are working and put cash in your register. So invest your ad dollars to reach our raving Madison and Dane County fans, or affordably reach the whole state, Chicago, Minneapolis, and our nationwide stream audience today. The Devil's Advocates can be the voice of your business, hold special events at your location, interview your staff for satisfied customers to lift your business. Contact us today, Crute at darnwy.com. That's Crute at darnwy.com.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're listening to Mad Radio.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
And welcome back to the Double Advocate Radio Show. You can always join us on the lines, 844-967-2789. I know we got some callers holding, but I also want to throw this out there. I think John from Boya was talking about the debt and the interest in these things, and I brought this up recently. I want to throw it out there again. AmericanProgress.org from March of 2023. Tax cuts are primarily responsible for the increasing debt ratio. I'm not going to get into it deep, but I would suggest checking it out. I'll put up on the socials. All their data is marked for your own confirmation and research. The need to increase the debt limit, again, this is in March, has focused attention on the size and trajectory of the federal debt. Long-term projections show that federal debt as a percentage of the U.S. economy is on a path to grow indefinitely with increased non-interest spending due to demographic changes such as increasing life expectancy, declining fertility, and decreased immigration, and rising health care costs permanently outstripping revenues under projections based on current law. House Republican leaders have used this fact to call for spending cuts, but it does not address the true cause of rising debt. Tax cuts initially enacted during Republican trifectas in the past 25 years slashed taxes disproportionately for the wealthy and profitable corporations, severely reducing federal revenues. In fact, relative to earlier projections, spending is down, not up, but revenues are down significantly more. If not for the Bush tax cuts and their extensions, as well as the Trump tax cuts, revenues would be on track to keep pace with spending indefinitely, and the debt ratio would be declining. Instead, these tax cuts have added $10 trillion to the debt since their enactment and are responsible for 57% of the increase in the debt ratio since 2001 and more than 90% of the increase of the debt ratio if the one-time cost of bills responding to the COVID-19 and the Great Recession are excluded.
That's new news.
Is a big, of course, man, it's revenue. You're addressing the revenue side of it. And I get, the spending, I understand that. But, if even just with inflation, spending is going to go up. But, they do the tax cuts and they don't do any subsequent, they being the government, those that are in charge. And certainly some Democrats voted for these tax cuts as well. But this is primarily a Republican thing. And if that were not to be the case, we wouldn't be talking about these ratios. We wouldn't talk about this indefinite debt rising. Well, look what we've done. And we've done that. And we hit the revenue side and not adjusted the expense side, the cost side, the spending side. And it's, oh, this is terrible. What did you think about that when you passed the bills?
Remember when we were on Brady Street, old Resistance Radio days back when Ron Johnson used to come around? And Ron came around in like 2017-18 timeframe, feeling very good about himself. I believe 2018, because Ron Johnson, through his singular intransigence, had changed the Trump tax cut proposals to include tax cuts for designated S corporations. Now, I'm not expecting you all to be accountants, but that means mostly small businesses that pass through to the owners. So I was at that time a designated S corporation. And if we had ever been profitable in the radio industry, it would have passed through to my personal income taxes. I've had profitable companies prior. That just didn't happen to be one of them. But anyways, Ron came down and he was so proud. Rudy, I did this for us, because Ron claimed himself PACOR. Then he was part of his father-in-law's family business, sort of a captive audience, his single supplier business. But anyways, Ron also apparently a designated S corp. But what Ron never broke to us is so were a couple of other prominent Republican donors. The Uline family, Dick and Liz, big donors, and the widow Hendricks happened to also structure their corporations as designated S corps. So had I ever made a little bit of profit, I would have gotten a slightly fairer tax calculation. But I've always said there's a greater benefit to be a small business owner, to have this structure in place, because I get to claim my expenses. I get to go spend as much money as I can on business stuff and then pay taxes. That's different from the average working stiff, where the government takes your money and every nickel you spend is after tax. It's a different deal. So it was already, to my perception, a slightly better deal to be a small business owner than a laborer. But now it's a much better deal, especially if you're the Uihleins or the widow Hendricks and you've had very profitable, successful small businesses that are also designated S. Because as I remember the math, Dom, and memory's usually pretty good. Fridays gets a little sketchy, but usually pretty good. In the singular tax year 2018, those two families saved something to the tune of $200 million.
Something like that. Yeah.
$200 million in a single filing. Two families saved $200 million through that alteration in the tax codes, singularly established through the intransigence of Ron Johnson. Proud to tell us, did it for us, Crute, you and I, and the Uihleins and the widow Hendricks. And I don't think I blew up the tax codes, Dom. If I saved $5,000, $1,500 that year, great. I don't even know that I did. But the Uihleins and the widow Hendricks saved $200 million in that tax filing year alone. Now multiply that through what? Half a decade we've lived since then? Starts to add up to some real money, Dom, like $1 billion through two tax filers alone. And the fact that they reimbursed Ron, well, they don't call it that. That'd be untoward.
Of course, you can't do something like that.
They
More like a
turned
finder.
around and gave beneficial donations to the campaign of Ron Johnson to the amount of like $21 million. That's like a 10% kickback.
That's
what you do, right, Dom?
You scratch my back, one hand washes the other. They both wash the face.
We've got some callers holding, but there was a PolitiFact on Ron. Wanted to get this out. Caitlin Collins asked Ron the other day, and we've got a PolitiFact on this statement that Ron made. Play it for the people.
Sells out of a nuisance lawsuit. They agreed to settle a nuisance lawsuit that never should have been brought.
So you think it's
It was
fine
a
that
harassment
someone
lawsuit. It was a travesty of justice.
you think it's fine that someone who tried to overturn a legitimate election is still on a board
Democrat
that
electors
helps
have done that
certifies-
repeatedly. Democrats have done
Which
Democrats
one?
have done the same thing.
In
Republicans have never
Wisconsin,
tried
there's
to
been
criminalize it.
fake slates of electors.
No, it's happened in different states. I
Which
didn't
ones,
come
sir?
prepared to give you the exact states, but it's happened. It's happened repeatedly. It has happened repeatedly. Just go check the books.
Which books?
I mean, there have been alternate slates of elections.
So he says it's happened repeatedly. Democratic false slates of electors. PolitiFact, cutting to the chase, says that is wrong. His own aide acknowledged that Johnson meant to make a different point, a more general one about Democrats objecting to past election results. And in any case, none of the evidence provided by Johnson matches the original claim. We rate Rojo fault. Shocker, Dom. Come back. Maggie Dawn. She never gets it wrong when she's on the Devil's Advocates radio show. That's her greatest decision ever. She's next.
This is Mad Radio 92.7 WMDX. You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Mad Radio 92.7 programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Solidarity Realty, there is an alternative.
Tons of glass artists share the same passion for eye-catching art as Ignite Glass and Gifts, so we're showcasing their work alongside our talented local artists and our in-house Ignite artists. The latest techniques, the hottest colors, and mind-blowing designs are here for you to enjoy. Madison's favorite for glass, gifts, and vape, Ignite Glass and Gifts. Monona Drive, Williamson Street, and Odana Road, plus IgniteGlassandGifts.com. Do your eyes a favor and see this stuff.
You're listening to Mad Radio, WMDX 1580 AM Columbus, W224EG Madison, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is a special report from ABC News. Rudy Giuliani defamation case. I'm Michelle Franzen. A jury awarded two Georgia election workers nearly $150 million in damages in the defamation case against Rudy Giuliani. A judge earlier found Giuliani defamed the election workers by falsely accusing them of voter fraud. Giuliani vowing to appeal.
For his lies about the two election workers, Rudy Giuliani has been ordered to pay the women more than $148 million. It's a number the cash-strapped former mayor calls absurd.
I am quite confident when this case gets before a fair tribunal, It'll be reversed so quickly, it'll make your head spin.
In tearful testimony, Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss said they were forced into hiding after Giuliani falsely claimed they engaged in voter fraud. Giuliani says he regrets that they were harassed, but he says he had nothing to do with it. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
It took the jury 10 hours to deliberate and make their decision. This is ABC News.
This is your hometown radio, refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained, and connected locally across the Civic Media Network.
Civic Media News. I'm Terry Bell. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. A Wisconsin corn mill agrees to pay close to $2 million in penalties and make major safety improvements. That's after the explosion in Cambria 6 years ago that killed 6 workers and injured some others. Didion Milling is required to develop a safety system and work closely with federal safety regulators. 2 company officials were convicted in October of falsifying documents and obstructing the OSHA investigation. Wisconsin Assembly Speaker Robin Vos says a deal approved by state university leaders this week is, quote, just the first step. Wisconsin's most powerful Republican says he wants to eliminate what he calls cancerous diversity practices on campus. Milwaukee State Representative Dora Drake tweets, the fight for underrepresented groups continues. I'm Terry Bell, Civic Media News. Now, here's what you need to know closer to home.
For WMDX News, I'm Nate Weggehout. Governor Tony Evers has approved nearly $600 million to finance a number of projects across the state, including many upgrades to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Some of that money will go towards addressing critical infrastructure upgrades to the campus, including fire protection, an expansion to a chilled water plant, and the replacement of HVAC and electrical systems. UW-Platteville will also get similar infrastructure upgrades. Madison Alder Kristen Slack has announced that she is resigning from the Madison Common Council. Slack was first elected to the council in April of this year and served on a number of city committees, including the Board of Public Works. Slack says that her family has been dealing with major health issues since the election, and she can no longer adequately continue as Alder. Her last day is January 10th. The city is now accepting applications to fill the vacancy. Applications are due Tuesday, January 9th. And that's what you need to know. I'm Nate Weggehout, WMDX News.
You can read the reviews. Excellent service, outstanding food, fun environment. But why not enjoy Fajitas Tapas and Bar in Middleton yourself? Fajitas Tapas and Bar is open 4 to 10 Monday through Thursday, 11 to 10 Friday and Saturday, 4 to 9 Sunday, and though new, it's already a top 10 pick on Yelp. Find your unique flavor and fresh ingredients at Fajitas Tapas and Bar on the corner of Parmenter and University, downtown Middleton. Call 608-203-8048.
The Packers' A.J. Dillon is injured. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. The Packers' popular running back, A.J. Dillon, is dealing with a broken thumb. It happened on one of the final plays against the Giants on Monday. That means that Patrick Taylor will get more snaps at running back, but he's made some mistakes getting out of bounds to save time on the clock.
As a running back, your coach preaches fighting for extra yards and things like that. It's extremely hard not to stay in bounds and start to try to fight for extra yards, but in situations such as that one, with it being about 24 seconds left, you got to get out of bounds right there.
The Badgers basketball team won at home against Jacksonville State 75-60. Greg Gard on Jacksonville's head coach, Ray Harper.
You know, Jacksonville, I don't think we give enough credit for how they tried to play us, really jamming things up, gapping up, sending the double team, and Coach Harper's been doing it for a long time. So you could just watching film, we were going to have to really work.
That's Wisconsin's head coach, Greg Gard. With sports, I'm Mike Clemens.
I'm meteorologist Mace Michaels. A cloudy sky tonight, maybe a little drizzle or mist, and lows in the upper 30s. And a cloudy day again for tomorrow, highs only to the low 40s. Early clouds Sunday, then sun breaks out for the afternoon, around 40 for the high. Breezy, sunny, but only upper 20s Monday. Currently, it's 44 degrees.
Your smile says a lot about you. It can give you confidence and give great first impressions. At West University Family Dentistry, Dr. Thacker and his staff will help ensure your oral health is in top shape, because oral health affects your overall health. From routine checkups to advanced treatments, they're here to keep your smile shining bright and to make your dental appointment as pleasant and stress-free as possible. Call West University Family Dentistry at 608-238-6244. 608-238
Dom, do you have Maggie with you?
No, she's not here yet.
Okay.
It's your hometown radio. Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the Civic Media Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
And now, here's your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. It's Friday. It's a happy hour. There's been a $148 million defamation ruling against Rudy Giuliani. If $48 million was going to kill him, this will kill him 3 times over. A jury.
Yes. Rudy, it was
$48 million.
It was 16.2 million and 17 million each for defamation, 20 million each for emotional distress, and $75 million in punitive damages. I think that sends
I'm appealing. Rudy, of course, will appeal.
Well, I mean, at that
you
point, if you're Rudy Giuliani, you don't have $148 million, right? I'm assuming he does not. He can't scratch a check for that. It may as well be $100 bajillion, zillion dollars. You know what I mean? What? He can't pay it. He's not going to be able to pay it. Now, what he does have, hopefully, will be sold off and given to the victims of his abuse.
But once you've already been found to be the loser in this case, I just don't think you should have the right to go out on the steps of the courthouse and say, we're going to reverse those so quickly your head will spin. Well, if this was a criminal finding, your ass would be sitting in jail until they did. And they usually don't. Most cases are not overturned on appeal. Anyways, Dom, we're eagerly anticipating our legal counsel, Milwaukee County Corporation Counsel, Maggie Dawn, most importantly, our good friend and the host of the Maggie Dawn Show, doing a little overtime today, hopefully on her way to join Dom for a little Friday partying right here on the airwaves. But in the meantime, that means you could air your grievances, and we're going to go to the exotic location of Soldiers Grove, Wisconsin. And Ross, welcome to the show. What do you got for us?
Hi, Ross.
Hey, guys. Hey, just a quick note for John down there in Flores. Van Orden is he's fortunate or unfortunate to have Van Orden as his U.S.
Yeah, he lives in the 3rd, right? Right, Ross? Do you live in the 3rd? Soldier Grove, also in the 3rd, is it not?
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of a weird district, kind of reaches all the way up to La Crosse and has this little weird arm that extends up into the middle of the state. It's kind of a strange district, but this is just my little Friday comment. I'm voting for Biden, and it's like, oh, some people say, oh, wow, surprise. But the reason I'm voting for Biden is because here in Soldiers Grove, where I live, I don't even have fiber optic internet. I'll be getting it in a couple months. And the reason I'm getting it is because of the Biden Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act, which Van Orden wasn't in power, I don't think, to vote for those, but he was a state senator. And there's no thanks to Van Orden, no thanks to the Republicans in this state that we've been without internet, and we're now finally getting fiber optics. I got to burn cell data. I'm sure I could get a satellite, but if you've ever been to this part of the state, you get in these valleys, and those satellites don't work back here. So we're now getting, and that's happening because of Biden, President Biden. So I would defy anyone if there's any conservative people out there that would say blah, 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 and ask yourselves, if you didn't have internet, what would you be saying at this point? So that,
Well, they end up listing on AM Talk Radio. Ross, are you listening on what, 1490 The Eagle out of La Crosse? How do you listen to us?
yeah. So no, I where I'm at, I'm south of La Crosse. I'm kind of close to down by near Richland Center, so I got WRCE that I can listen to. Yeah. So, but if I'm out on my property walking around, I use the app. You know, I got to burn a little bit of cell data to do that. Otherwise, if I'm at home, if I'm in the house, then I can turn the radio on and listen to you guys.
Keep us near and dear, Ross. Appreciate you listening. You know, always great to hear from people in the great state of Wisconsin. We're going to take at least a few more, or try to get to a few more, like Mark from the Sack. Mark, you're going to be next. What's your Friday grievance? Mark.
Oh, you got me. Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah, man. Be ready. Be ready. Hot potato coming your way.
Rudy's pants so on fire that his testicles are getting scorched. But,
come on, man. We're not talking about chestnuts roasting over open fires today, okay, Mark?
And Ron Johnson, I mean, that's what I meant to say for that. I mean, that liar, Ron Johnson, and Rudy Giuliani, liar on him, too, because he's going to go out again and lie about the people he was just, hit for $148 million for. I mean, the guy, I don't know, and it is just these guys are just despicable. I mean, they're purely despicable. I know this is the season of good feelings toward your fellow man, but for some of these, it's kind of hard to scratch up good feelings for your fellow man for some of these folks.
Well, Mark, as you know, Dom is an atheist, and his attitude's always been F that guy, and that really is any season of the year. Dom, I see we've been joined by the incomparable Maggie Dawn. This will be priceless. You know, this is what you've been waiting for. This is your Christmas surprise. Maggie Dawn, counselor, welcome to the Devil's Advocates radio show.
What's up, guys? How you doing this Friday afternoon?
Oh, much better now that you're here, Maggie Dawn.
Are we airing of the grievances?
It
is the
is.
Festivus
We are.
pull up?
It is.
We are. Maggie, I got to ask you, Jim Trupus, we found out this week through some of the, I guess, apparently Michigan tapes of Kenneth Chesebro giving testimony to investigators. And in some way, shape, or form, Trupus actually towed the line of reality. And I don't want to give this man too much credit, because I know he was willing to throw out his own vote, that of his wife, disenfranchise 200,000 Wisconsin voters. But when the courts didn't go that way, at least he was willing to see it that way. Chesebro had a different plan. Did you see that reporting this week, Maggie?
I sure did. I was really, I listened to the audio that got released. First of all, Chesebro talks real fast, doesn't he? It's like, yeah, I told him maybe it was possible to still overthrow the government. And then everybody said that I shouldn't be saying that to him, that he might take that the wrong way. I thought the audio from Chesebro was really interesting because I'm not sure it proves everything that people are assuming that it proves. And I think Chesebro was probably saying that because he thinks it's going to create some deniability, perhaps, for Trump. But I did think it was very revelatory to see that in that meeting, Trupus was the one that was saying, yeah, this isn't going to work. You're done, sir.
You're done. He literally said, Wisconsin's over. Yeah.
Yes. And he should have known, right? He was the one that had orchestrated the recount. I was there every day. The arguments were rejected. They were appealed, and it was done. So,
hey, you're sort of minimizing your part in this whole role. You were my hero for this, Maggie Dawn. You whooped Trupus's ass on a daily basis. This wasn't a 5-minute affair. This was a daily trench warfare. Him challenging every ballot in the stack each and every day until you set a process that allowed you to expedite through this so the deadlines could be met. Your part is a big part, Maggie Dawn. Don't minimize.
Well, thanks, Mike. And my role during that process was not as a partisan. It was as the legal advisor to the Milwaukee County Election Commission, and advising them and helping them to figure out how to get it done when every single ballot was challenged. So there were 0 ballots counted in Milwaukee County for just slightly over 2 days, as we permitted. And I had advised the Milwaukee County Elections Commission, just let's take every single objection that can be made by the side that either side that wishes to challenge a ballot on any basis. Permit them to make all of the objections that they think would plausibly apply to any ballot. Engage briefing, ask them to put forward their legal arguments. You allow the opposing side to respond. You allow a reply brief. We're going to do that in a highly expedited. It was a matter of hours on each side. And then the Elections Commission took that briefing under advisement. They had oral argument broadcast live on YouTube. And then the Elections Commission ruled on each and every objection. And effectively, then objections were just noted, right? Like the counting could begin then. They went through all the objections and they said, yes, no, maybe so, count these, don't count these, and proceed. And so people were freaking out because they're like, not a single ballot's been counted in Milwaukee County for 2 days. And I'm a process gal. You get the process right. You create a robust record that you know will provide a reviewing court full argumentation on both sides, right? You really wanted Mr. Trump's campaign to have its day before the commission, right? And allow them to put forth all possible factual and legal arguments. And we did that. And then we got the count done. And then the courts took up their arguments on appeal and found nearly all of them to not be meritorious. The ones that they did find were meritorious had no substantive effect on the count at all.
And you did so effectively that you convinced Jim Trupis, who was counsel for Trump here in the state of Wisconsin. He was on the other side of this argument. You convinced him that Wisconsin was dead. This was a dead end. Because if you come to Wisconsin, you got Maggie Dawn on the other side, and she already whooped our asses. But interestingly, Cheesebro didn't let it die. As you pointed out, Cheesebro said, but it's not really a done deal until January 6th. And there were plenty willing to play along, which was the next step in the coup, because it really didn't matter. It really didn't matter. We had the plaintiff's attorney on the other day from Law Forward, Jeff Mandel. And Mandel said, we were satisfied with where we've resolved with these 10 people, but the lawsuit still remains against Jim Trupis and against Cheesebro. And my question is do you think they're still there?
Yeah, maybe we can talk about it when we come back from these very important messages that no one should miss. Because, why give away all the milk for free? You gotta pay the bills first, everybody. You'll get my opinion on that when we come back, right, Mike?
I hope it's good, wholesome whole milk that Santa uses to make his muscles strong.
What was that?
That was Congresswoman Virginia Fox. She is our good friend Maggie Dawn, counselor to the Devil's Advocates. Although, she would not accept that role. More devils.
All right, short break.
Sorry about being late.
No worries.
Partner now with the greatest radio show ever and start getting return on your investment immediately. The Devil's Advocates are a small business just like you, and like you, we can't afford advertising that offers no return. The Devil's Advocates listeners,
It was kind of like,
sponsors, and the mission.
like Black Fridays used to be.
Where do you shop at?
Metro Market.
So
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
over.
fun.
Just the one that's on Van Buren. It's over.
affordably reach the whole
It's a
state.
smaller store. Nowhere
Their
between
nationwide stream audience
And like,
today. The Devil's Advocates
you'll not
will
be
the
surprised
voice of your
until you
business,
organize
hold
my
special events at your
by like
location,
department.
interview your staff for
So it's like,
satisfied
and like,
customers
I know
that
the
meet your
order that the
business.
stuff comes
Contact
in,
us
so
today.
it's literally
True
like,
DARNWY.com. That's true.
I'm not surprised.
no. So I have it down about a scientific.
Join us for the John and Gordy Show 6 to 8 a.m. weekdays.
You got self-checkout line too?
Your family won't want to
I
miss
did
the
it
shindig, hullabaloo, and politics.
John and Gordy Show, weekday morning 6 to 8 a.m.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
And welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Happy Friday to us all. Airing of the grievances. Having some fun, though. Maggie Dawn, Milwaukee County Corporate Counsel, host of the Maggie Dawn Show, is in studio with me. Happy Friday, Maggie. Thanks for coming around.
Oh, it's my pleasure, guys. What a way to kick off the weekend with Dom Crute.
You're welcome.
Maggie, I don't know if you saw this one. I want to throw this out, talking about a little Wisconsin politics. Wisconsin senior senator Ron Johnson didn't hold his own very well on CNN recently, and Caitlin Collins, challenged him. Oh, what
the books, check the books.
Talking about the fraudulent electors and talking about they civilly settled this case with Law Forward. And according to Ron Johnson, it was a travesty of justice. I mean, it was
his words.
Yes, his words. And of course, and then he followed it up with, well, the Dems have been doing this all the time. This happens all the time with the Dems. Caitlin Collins wasn't having any of it. What, this has happened before? We've had fraudulent electors from Wisconsin. No, I mean, this has happened. You just got to check the books. What book? So very...
Line of the year. Which book, sir?
The book.
Have your office call me. If it's true, we'll put it on the air.
If it's accurate.
Crickets.
Right. Yes. And then she followed up. I did see Caitlin Collins do a follow-up piece on CNN, and PolitiFact in Wisconsin here at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel also threw it out there. False. No, man. This is what he ended up sending Caitlin Collins, and what his staff articulated as his points didn't even address the false statement that he made in the first place.
Correct. I talked about it a bit on my show this week, like the day, I think on Tuesday this week. And my point is, when you're about to say extraordinary things or make really breathtaking allegations, you should be able and prepared. We should be able to expect of political leaders and elected officials that when you say something like that, you should expect a follow-up question, which should be asked, and you should have facts to back it up. And if not, you shouldn't be asked to come back on air, right? Like don't we have a social contract here that you don't just make stuff up out of whole cloth every day because it happens to suit you in the moment politically? Ron Johnson is not a credible speaker on any topic. The environment, COVID, the drinking age.
Oh, it's
that's
tough.
what Ron does, though. In the interview format, Ron will just basically lock down. Let me ask you policy. Ron Johnson, most recently when I saw him, he was with Brian Style in Whitewater, and they were basically making the threats, starting the threats that they were going to tie the funding of Ukraine, the funding of Israel, to the border wall. And here we find the Senate Democrats apparently have taken up these negotiations. And I don't think Ron is directly at the table negotiating, but this is the underlying theme that Ron and I believe Mike Lee called for. And we find the Democrats negotiating on this topic, or there won't be any more money for Ukraine. We'll just give it over to Putin and Israel. They used to be our friends, apparently. Any thoughts?
Ron shouldn't be at any negotiating table because negotiations rely upon good faith, and nothing that comes out of his mouth can be relied upon. He's also not considered a GOP leader in the Senate. He's a clown show amongst his own caucus in the Senate. He's the cringy guy, right? Like, oh God, Ron Johnson's talking again. What possibly is going to happen?
Didn't Mitt Romney ask him once, is there a conspiracy theory you don't believe?
Basically, and when the Binders of Women guy who's strapping his dog to the roof is asking you, what conspiracy theories don't you believe in? It's not good.
It's not good. It's not good.
But the distastefulness of taking one of the most complex and fraught public policy questions that faces the United States domestically, and we do have a crisis of how to fulfill our nation's first principles, which is come. Right? Come. We welcome people here. Your huddled masses, right? Like these are our first principles. And how do we fulfill that promise while still, ensuring that the people that reach our country do so legally, are given fair process, and that we don't permit people in who want to do us harm? That is a question that has been plaguing the Congress and the United States for 25 years. And now, at a moment when you have Russia and Putin pressing forward into Western Europe, threatening NATO, and a complete humanitarian and security crisis in the Mideast, the purely cravenness of tying these things together is so disgusting that it defies explanation, in my opinion. Having said that, listen, Democrats are pretty good at letting the GOP feel like they just lodged a win when what they're winning is nothing of any moment or substance. Let us all hope that that is so true here. That was the whole compromise between Biden and McCarthy over the debt ceiling. He let McCarthy take a victory lap when there was no victory at all. It was all on Biden's side of the ledger, like that's the trick. Let's pull another one off here.
How'd that work out for Kevin McCarthy?
Yeah.
He's the speaker still, right?
Not so much.
Well, it's like Mike Johnson's like McCarthy 2.0 with very weird religious righty beliefs, right? I mean, he's not doing anything differently than McCarthy.
Like literally almost did the same exact
It
thing.
is. It's the same. It's just on repeat because they can't control their own caucus because they've gerrymandered themselves into blood red districts that promote extremists and know-nothings and pedophiles like Matt Gaetz and MTG and the Boberts of the world. I mean, these are know-nothing people who have no idea what government actually is supposed to do or how it provides community wellness and our collective responsibility. They have no interest in any of that. They're just bomb throwers.
Maggie, I have great interest in knowing your opinion. Wisconsin Supreme Court, another topic with Law Forward, Jeff Mandel, was the gerrymander suit. And he told us to expect some sort of a ruling. Maggie, read some tea leaves, speculate with me. How do you think this will go? And do we still have to fear the U.S. Supreme Court intervening and taking away any victory we might win at the state highest court level?
Well, the maps have deprived one person, one vote as a fundamental principle, where you have a split state or a state that more often than not leans left, and yet you only see 40% of the assembly as Democrats and nearly a veto-proof supermajority. That's not fair representation. And it may be if you're on the GOP side of the fence now, you think, oh, that's working great for me. But those tides will turn. We need a different process in Wisconsin. It's not working. Use the Michigan model, get a nonpartisan commission, and get the politicians out of it. Everyone deserves fair maps. That's where the court's going to go. But the quality of the decision here matters. Because if it is a well-crafted decision, it is my view that the Supreme Court will have a very hard time granting certiorari. A very hard time. But watch out, that shadow docket may indeed be what we should fear most. That is staying the effect of an order of the Wisconsin Supreme Court and keeping these gerrymandered, unfair maps in place through 2024. That's my great fear.
Folks, she is Maggie Dawn. If she is afraid, you should be afraid. She never gets it wrong. She's a friend of ours. Would you accept our representation request? Will you be counselor for the Devil's Advocates? We might need a lawyer.
Retainer.
Well, goodwill and like a buck. And I might need change. Come back, more Devil's Advocates.
WMDX.
Long week.
I got my COVID booster and our flu shot yesterday morning, and I woke up at 11 o'clock last night.
Feeling shit.
Chill,
Yeah. How are you feeling today?
I'm fine now.
I'm Terry Bell. Here's what Wisconsin needs to know. Wisconsin students pursuing careers in healthcare will now enter the workforce more quickly and easily. The state's public and private colleges and universities have a deal with the Department of Safety and Professional Services. It will streamline the process to get new professional licenses.
I'm getting there.
Holiday shopping creates opportunities for scam artists. Working and Clam is a fraud
This one,
expert at AARP Wisconsin. She says shoppers need to be careful in brick and mortar stores too.
So like the armless wraps, like, oh my God, like I rolled over on it in the middle of the night. I was like, okay, I'm up now. Thank you. Yeah, like way over to the shoulder press machine. But it was just a day.
I'm Terry
right?
Bell, Civic Media News. Now,
But I had to get up at 5 o'clock.
Freedom.
Yeah,
WMDX News. I'm Nate Buckyhouse. Activists and neighbors to the Dane County Regional Airport are asking county leaders to delay a vote on a proposed agreement for firefighting services at the airport. Under the deal, the National Guard would be the ones to respond to a fire involving a civilian aircraft. But the deal also bars the county from suing the federal government over any PFAS pollution caused by the use of firefighting foam. PFAS
It was
pollution
fine,
has
and then
prompted
I had to get the
Madison to
grocery
close
shop
one of its
done,
water
and
wells
it's
near
like,
the airport back in 2019.
I did call
UW
the
Madison's
Always show
chief
today.
diversity officer says
And
that they will
I was
continue
driving,
their
like I had to
work
drive
to
out
make
to
the
Waukesha. I
campus
was in the
available to
car a lot,
everyone,
right? So I
despite a
caught
deal
part of
between
all the
lawmakers
show.
and university
And I
officials
caught part of
reclassifying
Asgo's,
diversity, equity, and inclusion positions.
so-called
LeVar Charleston
Oh, yeah,
told
so
the
it's
State
fun.
Journal that UW Madison's DEI vision
So
is
it was a
broad.
good day. I got a
It
lot
supports a
done.
wide range of
It was
students.
like I got to be
And that's what you
focused.
need to know.
Know exactly
I'm Nate
what
Buckyhouse,
the timing
WMDX
is. That's why it's like
News.
I will know by approximately
From
4
Solidarity
o'clock.
Realty here. Are you starting the process of buying or selling a home? The last couple of years have left people with so many questions of where to start. Solidarity's team has decades of experience in the
No,
community.
it's my
Let
big
us
family
guide you through one
Christmas
of the
thing.
hottest real estate markets in the
Which,
country. Whether you're a first-time
my
home
folks
buyer
aren't going
or an
now to-
experienced investor looking
My
for
mom's
single-family,
still not
multi-unit,
great.
or
My
commercial,
dad, right?
Solidarity Realty is your local firm here to help you. Don't
Which
call
is
the
kind of
sign.
like, well,
Visit
they aren't gonna be there.
solidarityrealty.com.
Maybe I would, but like, it's too
The Packers' A.J. Dillon is injured. Hi, I'm Mike Clennons with sports. The Packers' popular running back, A.J. Dillon, is
Well,
dealing with a
crap, so I
broken
went on
thumb. It
toast
happened on one of the
That's
final
my
plays against the
appetizer,
Giants
and
on
then, like,
Monday. That
Italian
means that Patrick
sausage and
Taylor
there's
will get more
cheese
snaps at
stuffed
running back, but he's made
mushrooms
some
with
mistakes
fish.
getting out of bounds to
Is
save
it?
time on the
Oh,
clock.
yeah.
As a running back,
No.
your coach preaches like, fighting
Does-
for extra
do I
yards
look
and,
like
and
Sandra
things like
Lee?
that. It's
Because
extremely
that's-
hard not to stay in
Yeah,
bounds and start
no,
to try
Sandra
to fight for extra yards.
was
But
the
in situations such as that one, with it being about like 24 seconds
That's
left,
not a
gotta
cooking
get it
show.
done.
That's a buying
Badgers
show.
basketball
That's a
team
buying
went
and
home
mixing
against
show. What are you
Jacksonville
talking about? Get off the
65-60
cooking
from
channel.
guard on Jacksonville's head coach, Ray
So,
Harmon.
Jacksonville, I don't think we give enough
yeah, and then I
credit for how
bought
they tried to play
6
us,
pounds of
really
butter.
jamming things up,
And
gapping
the
up,
a pound
sending
of butter is
double
like
team,
$6, right?
and Coach Harper's
It's
been
crazy.
doing it for a long time.
It's
So
like,
we
guys,
could just watch how
inflation's
watching
down
film,
to
we're
like
gonna have to really work
3.25%.
That's Wisconsin's head coach.
Readjust your pricing.
Sports. I'm Mike Clemens.
Well, and the friggin' state tax assessors like dinging people this year. I was like, that's not good. Like the property tax goes on everything 4.25%. It was like, dude, that is shit assessment valuations. Like you should be correct. There's no cyclical inflation that should be impacting home valuations because you don't buy a home and sell it in a year, right? It's not. That's not core plus, right? Like core is everything with food and gas. Core plus is the overall CPI index, right? Or CPI. It's like that. It doesn't. It's not a consumer. A house is not a consumer good. But that's typical assessors. Like, oh, give them an inch, they'll take.
Well, you can fight it,
4.5.
you can challenge it.
You can, but nobody. Terrible
And
process.
celebrating 30 years of excellence.
Did we talk Rudy already? We didn't talk Rudy yet, did we?
No, we didn't. I hit that on my show too. I had the audio. Oh, that was so gorgeous.
All right, here we go.
Freedom. Freedom.
60% of the time, they're right every time. The Devil's Advocates.
I got to tell you, it's cracking me up with that. Do you remember when, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. It's the Friday edition, a happier happy hour, and we're very happy because we've been joined by the greatest of guests, our friend Maggie Dawn. She does the Maggie Dawn Show, doing a little overtime this Friday. Maggie, you and I were part of a very important conversation, and freedom, one of the topics. Freedom resonates with a lot of people. And we talk about the polling currently and the head-to-head between Trump and Biden. And what I don't think is being accounted for in the national polling is Dobbs and Roe v. Wade, and how many women have really taken this, let's just say, quite personally, their loss of personal freedoms. And I would wonder, and I don't get every opportunity to speak with you on the air, but I would wonder, freedom as an issue, women's reproductive rights, women's abortive rights, do you think any of that is being reflected through these presidential preference polls? Do you think that one party has a clear claim to this side? I mean, do the Dems? Want to get your thoughts, Maggie Dawn?
Well, yeah, the Dems. Listen, I don't care. Pick your issue. And there is a very cogent and obvious and rational and fact-based argument that the Democratic Party is the one that actually advocates for and argues that, yes, every person in this country deserves to have their rights and freedoms protected, that it isn't a matter of religious preferencing, that is not in alignment with American values. For crying out loud, that's part of what the founding fathers were fleeing, right? So the idea that one person or one side's religious beliefs permit the taking of rights and freedoms from people who don't share those religious beliefs is completely un-American. So I don't care if you're talking about the right of women to access healthcare and to control their bodies in an equal way to men, which is essential to be a full member of society, or whether or not you're talking about the rights of LGBTQIA plus folks to participate fully in society, to the rights of children to read a variety of materials that represent a variety of viewpoints as carefully curated and chosen by those who are educational professionals within public schools. Yeah, these are freedoms, and the Democratic Party presents and represents freedoms in a much more real way when you get behind the sloganing and the scare tactics. I don't like to operate from a place of fear. I consider that weak. I consider those that do operate and make choices from a place of fear, those who have been manipulated and weak. I don't want any part of that weak party. And that weak party is the Republican Party. It's a weak party because you're following a guy that doesn't know squat about squat, including Ron Johnson and the Orange Man. That's weak. Turn on your brain, turn off the TV set, and engage. The Democratic Party represents freedom in all of its form. The freedom of workers to organize, to protect their rights. The freedom of the middle class to earn a reasonable living. The freedom of all of us and our rights to breathe air that's clean and drink water that is safe. Those are rights and freedoms. The GOP has nothing to do with any of that.
Kellyanne Conway said very recently that Republicans need to take up the cause of contraception, because you can't be pro-life and not be I know they're not going to, but that is her recommendation. But it is my understanding the U.S. Supreme Court, in fact, is taking up mifepristone. I know I'm not saying that properly, but this is labeled as an abortive pill, and maybe I misclassified that, but they're certainly going to misclassify that. This court seems very ambitious. They certainly don't seem to follow the current trend of the nation, or we wouldn't have a Dobbs decision in its form overturning Roe v. Wade. So, Maggie Dawn, I think we've got a tone-deaf Supreme Court. How fearful are you that they're going to rule against contraception?
I see some tea leaves on the Supreme Court that reflect the fact that they are becoming cognizant that their approval ratings are in the toilet, that people are angry, and that they are creating a problem for the GOP that got the majority of them onto the bench. I don't think they are going to side with the Fifth Circuit that concluded that mifepristone exceeded the FDA's authority. I actually think they're going to rule that the Fifth Circuit was an error. In other words, they're experiencing public opinion backlash. and they're trying to save face in a couple of different places. And I think contraception may be one of them. So again, my read is that on the mifepristone ruling, they're going to find in the FDA's favor. Now, meanwhile, back at the ranch, they're going to overrule Chevron deference. Okay, what is Chevron deference? That is, if Congress was silent in enacting a law about a particular detail, then it is left to the administration and the regulatory agencies filled with civil servants who are experts to rule-make in that area after an appropriate note and comment period. They're going to wipe that off the map. So it'll be very interesting. What I think is they are going to fundamentally change the rules of the game while effectively giving a little drippings to the poor here to try to keep Americans confused and off balance as to what is actually going on. So they let, for example, Illinois' assault weapons ban go into effect. There was a request on the shadow docket for an emergency stay to prevent it from taking effect. They denied that. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. I think they're going to modulate on some Second Amendment stuff as well, because they realize Congress is going to have to do something. The Supreme Court is unmoored from any of its prior practices. It has exploded in its power and authority, and it's making decisions in the dark of night on its shadow docket that affect millions of people's freedoms and rights, and people are starting to pay attention.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That's Maggie Dawn. She's the host of the Maggie Dawn Show, friend of ours, hanging out with us on a Friday. Maggie, on this topic, this Texas case, this woman who was allowed to get an abortion through a court order, and all of a sudden a Texas Supreme Court stayed that, said, no, you can't do it. Now she got to leave the state in order to have this procedure. A woman who has kids, wants kids, doesn't want to do this, but genetic difficulties, things happen in pregnancies, and they want her to go septic before she gets an abortion.
Yes, that's the
Texas.
Yes, that's the answer.
How is that an answer?
It's not. It's ridiculous. It's saying that a bunch of predominantly white men get to decide what's best for women. That is not how this works, everybody. It's never been how it should have worked, though it was for many, many eons until 1920, when women finally had the right to vote. The idea that you would force a woman to become infertile or risk her life, in other words, die, in service of your religious belief about how women should manage their own health care is not compatible with America's first principles. It's just not. This is a non-viable pregnancy, and if forced to come to terms, doctors have said that the child, if born, would suffer a painful death. So in service of imposing their religious beliefs on women, they're going to cause potentially a child to be born to live in suffering and to die in a suffering state, and potentially risk the mother's life as well as her fertility if she is to survive. I don't understand how that is acceptable under any religion, yet alone a legal system.
What's the blowback, the consequence, the solution to all of this?
Well, I think women who are in complex pregnancies need to start stepping forward and sharing their stories. Now, keep in mind, and Dom, if you wouldn't mind grabbing my phone right there, because I want to use the woman's name. Kate Cox is a nice white lady, middle to upper class, husband, 2 kids, right? Makes a nice story. Well, at the same time, this has been happening to Kate Cox, which is to have other people's religious beliefs determine how she can choose healthcare. At the same time that this has been happening, a woman, and I want to get the location correct, who had a miscarriage, and the miscarriage was in the toilet, is now being criminally prosecuted and threatened, I believe, with years in a state prison because she flushed the miscarriage discharge down a toilet. Now, the details are gruesome, but this was a dead fetus. The prosecution in her criminal matter concedes this was a dead fetus. It was dead in utero. It was a miscarriage. And they are trying to lock a woman up under these draconian, again, morality policing based on religious beliefs, draconian laws, trying to lock this woman up. She happens to be African American. I believe that's probably why we're not hearing more about
I mean, is this, and what's the charge? Something to do with a corpse? I guess I was.
It's came within that state's abortion ban language, and it has to do with fetal remains. I mean, that's insane. What? How many times do you guys know when I'm literally rendered speechless?
Not very often, Maggie Dawn, at all. Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Maggie Dawn, the Maggie Dawn Show. She comes up at 6 o'clock. She's hanging out with us a little early. We do appreciate it. You find it?
Yeah, this is Brittany Watts.
Brittany Watts.
So if you want to go Google Brittany Watts' story, this is just incredibly crazy. She had a miscarriage, and for that, we're going to send her to prison.
Charged with abuse of a corpse, according to the Washington Post.
It's the video. I've watched one of the hearings. It is just horrifying. And this is one of those things that falls within law enforcement and prosecutorial discretion. This young woman lost her baby, and your decision is to lock her up for it. As if she's not going through enough. It's the callousness and the cruelty. Again, I don't think that represents American values at all. That we treat each other with such cruelty, with such indifference. I didn't think that was who we are. And I certainly hope it's not.
This was in the state of Ohio. Yes, there we go. Ohio.
Less cool Wisconsin, you mean?
Mm-hmm. 844-967-2789. We'll get to some callers perhaps in the next segment. 2 minutes left in this one. All right, let me switch it up on you, because that's some very.
Are you going to talk about Rudy?
Yes.
Oh, I love it.
$148 million. They said $48 million would kill him. He's a dead man walking. The jury, some of the jurors apparently very emotional, crying during the testimony, and they came back with a doozy. $75 million of that in punitive damages. Maggie, what does that say to you?
Rudy, you're done. No one believes you. You are a lying sack of blankety blank. And this jury is going to make sure that you go broke and that you stay broke. He's likely judgment proof. I mean, I'll be surprised if these two women who were racially profiled, lied about, and have had their lives forever altered. They will never be able to live in safety again because Rudy Giuliani wanted to make himself feel important and lie to the American people.
Judgment proof because he probably has a net negative worth, would you suspect?
Yes. Clearly does. I mean, his own former right-hand man is suing him so he can get his lawyer fees paid. Rudy hired him as his lawyer and to the tune of $500,000, and he hasn't paid the guy.
Did he give some woman a very expensive engagement ring?
Yeah, I think I heard something about that.
I wonder if that can be returned for full or partial value.
Zales. Excuse me, Zales.
Hey, it's a gift. It's hers now. I don't think you give
that. Exactly. What's the law on that? That's mine.
Come on back. More of the Devil's Advocates with Maggie Dawn. She's our favorite.
Flying through the air.
92.7 WMD.
Where can you buy goods made around the globe, knowing your purchase is also making a difference? It's Ethical Trade Co.
I started
Madison.
crying when I was
Ethical
watching the
Trade Co.
video.
is a
I was like,
nonprofit product sales
what
and
has...
modern slavery by creating more
And the prosecutors are doing it, not because they believe it, but because they have to for the politics of the thing. It's so sad. It's so callous. It's so heartless.
Across from Schenck Elementary in
Yes.
Madison. EthicalTradeCo.com. Goods for a better world.
Look, if your car spends more time at the mechanics
Good.
than
I've
it
been
does on the
meaning
road,
to
you need
talk
to
about
visit Trust
that
and Ride Car
for
Dealership in Madison.
days
At
and
Trust and
kept
Ride, they
forgetting.
guarantee
So
you'll
now
get
I can
approved
take
for
it
a
off my
vehicle,
list
no
of
matter
things
what your credit history.
that need to
Bad
get
credit,
talked
no
about.
credit, no license, no problem.
Are you guys doing shows next week?
Warranty and roadside assistance for every used car. Check out the great
Next
selection
week,
of
yes.
vehicles at
Always
Trust
no,
and
I'm
Ride,
not.
2652 East
Yeah,
Washington
that's
in Madison.
the last
Log
week
on
we used to.
trustandride.net.
In fact,
That's
I'm taking
trust, the
next
letter
week.
N, ride.net. Quality cars, trusted deals. Trust and Ride in Madison.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but the show is kind of a big deal.
And welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, our last segment of the day. If you got something to say, air the grievances. Right now is your time. 844-967-2789. The Maggie Dawn Show coming up next. What's kind of the Maggie Dawn Show right now? I'm the Devil's Advocates, Maggie Dawn, in studio with me. Thanks for hanging out with us, girl.
Heck yeah, it's Friday. Let's have some fun with the Devils.
You know, I was on Nightlight with Pete Schwaba last night, and he asked me, have you guys developed some of your favorite guests? I said, developed them? Some of them got their own shows. And you, of course, come to mind. But technically, so does Pizza Box Mike. So, you know, consider the company you keep.
Let's just move on.
844-967-2789. Maggie Dawn wanted to get your opinion. The Board of Regents reconsidered an earlier decision this week. They have flipped their decision. They have gone along with the, I would say, terroristic negotiations of Robin Voss and how he can hold back the raises approved by the legislature for the entire UW system to even have these quote unquote one-sided negotiations. Maggie, any opinions? I know you're a bureaucrat, but this doesn't taste quite right. Leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
How do I say this? This is again what I would term performative politics. And that's a term I use a lot on my show. Here's what it means. It's the use of leverage or power for the sake of using leverage or power. It doesn't actually advance community wellness or any meaningful policy goal. And that's what's going on here. It's performance art. There's no there. What do I mean by that? It's cruelty, right? It's performative cruelty. It's sending what I believe will turn out to be a largely toothless symbolic message to Black and brown people and women and the LGBTQIA plus community that you're not welcome here. When in reality, here's what I think is going to happen. Stop calling it DEI. We'll use a different word. We're still going to do that because here's what employers demand: employees that are prepared for an increasingly diverse, increasingly interconnected workplace. They do, period. Professors and researchers demand and only want to work in places where a plurality of ideas are brought together, where people feel welcomed. That's what top-level researchers and professors, that's the environment they want to be in. So, all right, we won't call it DEI. Voss will take a victory lap. He'll talk about the cancer of DEI, but we'll start calling it something else. Because these fundamental demographic changes and the demographic trajectory of our country and the consumers of the United States, there is nothing that Robin Voss or Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis can do about that reality. And that reality is that we are becoming more diverse as we sit here on this radio show. And that requires people who are ready to engage in difficult conversations, who are prepared to understand that simply because they haven't experienced something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. People that have the humility and the EQ, the self-awareness to permit and to engage with others respectfully. That is where we're going. And I don't care what Robin Voss says about it. He's just feeding the beast. I would guarantee you that Robin Voss actually doesn't believe any of this crap that he's spewing. That is simply political necessity. The guy got primaried by the MAGA right. So he's got to give him some red meat, and here it is. And by the way, once we fix the darn maps, we'll just fix it right back in a few years anyways. Now, I don't mean to downplay how hurtful this is and what a betrayal this is. It is. It's all those things. But that doesn't change demographically what is happening. The maths, that's where we're going. It's what employers demand. It's what the biggest thinkers demand. And Robin Vos is a blip on the screen. Boy, is that a ridiculous amount of performative politics that is simply at its root cruel and exclusionary. And that's not what Wisconsin is at all.
Maggie Dawn, do you see any parallels between the current negotiations this weekend, the Senate and the Congress, the funding for Ukraine, the funding for Israel, tied to some random whatever makes Ron Johnson happy on the border stuff?
Of course it is. It's the same performative politics, right? The use of leverage for leverage's sake. It's not going to improve policy. It's not going to improve outcomes. It's going to harm the United States, just like Robin Vos's plan will harm and make people feel more excluded. It's all of one piece. It's the exact same tactic. Everybody should see it for what it is, a tactic, performative, that has nothing to do with what's going to make America safer or the University of Wisconsin educational system better. For shame. You're wasting our time. You're lying to our faces. And even you don't believe any of this nonsense. And just like I said about the immigration nonsense, that, remember what I said is like, let them take a victory lap, but it won't amount to a hill of beans. What did I just say about this thing that the university regents just had to do? Let them take a victory lap. It's not going to amount to a hill of beans in the grand scheme at the end of the day. But what it does do is hurt people. It sends a message that people aren't welcome. That's not what we're about. So call it out. It's just play acting. It's clowning. And it's beneath both the U.S. Congress and the UW Regents in our educational system.
844-967-2789. Do you think we'd want educated, accepting people to come out of our colleges? Isn't that kind of a thing? I mean, don't you want that as much as the employers? You know, someone coming in, some racist person who's never been around anybody else to
people get fired for that.
Right. And all of a sudden be like, well, what did you fire me for? Well, because you can't do something like that. You can't say you're offending people. This is not okay. This is not a professional environment.
And that's the vast majority of us. And in that majority of us who believe in inclusion and welcoming and believe in community and our neighbors, that is an overwhelming majority of us. And it's simply going to continue to be an overwhelming majority. The maths. And the irrelevancy of the GOP and its antiquated beliefs is exactly why they're clowning you. Don't believe the hype.
I always believe Maggie Dawn. Thank you so much. You made our Friday afternoon so much better because, Dom was just kind of mailing it in today. I could see it. I could see it in his eye.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you,
Maggie Dawn. Thank you so much. Thank you to Alan Robinson, our friend and sponsor from Herbal Aspect. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget, we do have more programming coming up, including the Maggie Dawn Show outside the Pizza Box in the Madison area on WMDX. And the Morning Cannolis tomorrow morning, our friend Jim, 9 to 11. Those are all the people that used to be friends of ours. They're all show hosts. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for listening.
I gotta go, American woman. Yeah.